Welcome back to Girl Call Me with Tanya,
and Jessica.
your new best friend and the place to go to celebrate the beauty and strength of Black womanhood.
In season 1, we dove into self-care and wellness through our eyes and the wise words of our accomplished and esteemed guests, all beautiful Black women who helped us see the positives of making a lifestyle rooted in self-love a priority and embracing a soft life in a hard world.
We explored body positivity, wellness journeys, and the strength in sharing our stories for Black women to feel seen and heard. But guess what? We're just getting started.
Get ready for season 2.
From childbirth to career milestones, we'll explore the pivotal moments where seeking support from a community of women can make all the difference. First of all, are you excited to be back at Girl Call Me in front of the
I'm
mic?
excited. I'm here. I'm excited. I'm excited about all the new people who are here. Not that I don't mess with the old people. Like, don't get it twisted, but I'm very excited about new fans. New fans and followers.
Yes, we are fans and followers. I love how we are like fans. They're listening, going, y'all are
So
extra. Y'all are so extra. Nobody said we were a fan. Somebody said
right,
we'll listen.
we'll
Let's
listen
not
to
be
one episode that does not make me a fan. I'm ready. I'm thankful for the shirts that
right.
everyone's been wearing and the fan mail and
Okay, extra. Anyway, well, welcome. Welcome to season
welcome to
2.
season
We
2.
are super excited to be back. We had first of all, we had an incredible first season. Truly grateful for everyone who listened and supported and gave us feedback, as well as all of the incredible women that we had that shared their
Yeah.
knowledge, like Joy Williams, Carrie, Marcel Haddix, woohoo for Marcel Haddix, who just got a new role at Madison,
Girl,
and as
you
well
better
as
pause there.
Nicole Wheat
New role as
oh,
the
let me pause.
dean in the School of
Of
Education
education.
at University
Yes. So
of
we need
Wisconsin, Madison. Okay.
let's give that applause. If we had like those little applause things, we would be doing it. I'm so happy for her. I'm sad for Syracuse University. She's been there 17 years, but I'm excited for Madison and her next chapter. And then also Nicole Weeks, who kind of started us off, who was our first guest, and who we hope will come back this season. And we hope all of them will come back if they so choose to. And we're lucky to have them grace our presence. But season 2,
Season 2. I'm excited. So season 1 was so much about self-care and to closer look at our own lives and our habits and how we can make choices that are the best for us. And season 2 is going to be in the same vein, but we're focusing on a lot of women who've kind of chosen to sit in a space professionally to work in fields to help other women. And still in the vein of, I think, helping people care better for themselves, their bodies, their minds, their spirits, but really learning more about some of these women and the community of support that is out there for all of us. I think through kind of really pivotal moments. I know we talked about menopause in season 1. We talked about childbirth. We talked about work and professional lives. And so a lot of people who work in those spaces we're going to talk to this season.
yes, we are super excited for some of the professionals. In some ways, we really want to continue on the theme that we started last season and looking at the profound impact of sisterhood and overcoming hurdles, as well as just the community. We learned, we always knew, but we were able to really highlight some of the community that we had in season 1, but we're really going to unpack that and we really talk about whether it's midwives and doulas, talking about breathing and how important it is to breathe, particularly during stressful times that we experience. We look forward to taking a deeper dive into mental health with a professional and talking about stress and anxiety and all the things that we go through. And then, we may have a little fun in some ways and talk a little bit about
Wow, don't sell that too hard. We may even have some fun.
have a
Dot,
little
dot, dot.
fun with some of our hosts. Listen, we are always have fun, as all of our listeners know. But we may take a turn and talk about sex and intimacy, dating, and some of the hurdles. Neither one of us have to deal with that, but we know people out there who are going through that struggle, and we look forward to bringing that to you. But welcome, and we are excited for the season ahead.
So today's topic, I think Tanya and I were just seeing so many conversations around the V word. That's vulnerability.
The V, right, thanks for unpacking that because there was a lot of questions. Woo, V what? V what?
Vulnerability.
The
But
vulnerability.
so we
Yes.
wanted to talk about that today, and I think what we know is it's gonna be more than one episode. So today we just kinda wanted to talk about maybe our both of our heads and our experiences around vulnerability and probably some unique experiences we feel as Black women. But before we get to that, we got just some catching up to do. What have you been doing the last month? 'Cause girl, it's almost summer. So, what have you
It
been
is.
doing?
It's almost summer. I have been, first of all, for some of you guys who live in Southern California, it feels like the weather just got warm. I have been waiting for pool time. I've been waiting for bathing suit season. Yes, I have, because listen, in my mind I'm snatched, but maybe in the reality I'm not. We will see. But I'm so excited to think about vacation, some time away, and gone to a conference or two and doing some professional development and learning. But most of all, I think I mentioned to you that I've been waiting for Bridgerton Part 2 to
Oh my
come
god.
back. And that is what I've been waiting for, because I need to know if Penelope finally gets
I'm
her
just
love.
understanding this. It's Bridgerton Part 2 because Queen Charlotte was technically the second part released, but that's not considered Part 2 because it's a prequel. Is that right?
Oh my God.
No.
No. This almost sounds like you explaining the basketball to me, because that was a
Wait. No.
no, no.
What?
So
No. Isn't this the 3rd time they've released episodes? Queen Charlotte was a second round of episodes they released, right?
no, when you think about Queen Charlotte was her own show.
Right.
It was
Oh,
kind of like, it was
a
basically
spinoff.
started as Bridgerton and Queen. It's her the spinoff, right? So you got to take that away. This is season 3,
Oh,
and so because of capitalism, Netflix didn't want people to just get Netflix for a month or a couple
right.
days. So what they did is they split season 3 into 2
But you said
parts.
season 2 in the
So
beginning,
we
or did
have
you say part 1, season 3?
exactly part 1, season
Okay.
3. So so I've watched part 1, and we are all
Name who
everyone,
was
and
in
you'll see
part
all the
1,
memes.
remind me. That's the Rajon whatever is the guy, right? The black guy? That was their story, right?
Yes, that
That
was
was
no, that was see okay, are you talking about, oh, are you talking about the
yeah,
good-looking brother that left? That's called
that was
season 1.
2020.
Then there was
Okay,
season yes, that was then
okay.
season 2, now this season 3. It's based on the book, so the 3rd one, we're focused on
Yes,
Penelope.
and she is Lady Whistledown. Down.
Yes.
Okay. I'm
Yes.
caught up. I'm caught
Okay.
up. I'm caught up.
Anyway, you are all caught up. So wait, so clearly we are aware that, Jessica's not waiting. Not waiting for June
Okay. I
13th to
don't
show up.
think I saw I definitely watched Queen Charlotte. I definitely watched season 1.
Yes, a lot of
I
people
think
did.
maybe
Yes.
I didn't watch season 2 or maybe I watched it during the time during the pandemic where now it's just, like, deleted from my brain.
Right.
So maybe I need to go back
Yeah. So I
and
think,
watch.
yeah. Yeah, I think you should, you know what? Binge watch with some tea, some high tea and some
Okay.
scones. But
This sounds like a
in
lot of work.
addition to that, well, no, it's not as much work as the catching up with the WNBA that's happening every
Yeah, we
single
do
day.
have to share that one of the what was called one of the most viral photos of this WNBA
Oh God,
season,
here we go.
I am in the photo.
Yes, and we will
We
be
will share
sharing
that
that
on
on
social
socials. I know
media.
you all want.
I was at
Yes.
the Aces game playing against the Sparks. Big,
Hmm.
big block by Kate Martin, rookie out of Iowa. And yeah, I'm in the background.
Yes, and I did want to. I know we've been lighthearted, but there's a lot of other stuff. What?
We t
Why are you laughing?
Okay, yep.
She does laugh when I kind
Y
of pivot.
You're like, "I
Now,
know
I know
that's
we've been
fun.
playing
I know
around,
that's fun."
but
I
there's
didn't
some
even get to
serious stuff
talk about the
happening in the
trash-ass
world.
men who are making the WNBA part of their
Oh,
conversation.
she's taking
Ste
back the floor. Let's
I
get that
just
out.
need to say, look,
Stephen A.
I've
Smith.
waited my whole life to just let somebody hear me besides my dad complain about Stephen A. Smith. So now that I have a podcast, I'm just gonna tell everyone here that man is trash. He's been trash. So that's yep, saying it.
Stephen,
Call us.
listen,
Girl, call us.
let's go. Let's call girl, and you probably yeah,
Girl, call
girl,
us.
call
Okay?
us.
All right. Now, anyways, Tanya, go ahead and take us to a
Yes.
very serious place.
No, I mean, listen, I don't. We intentionally have not talked about politics, and we're
Going
not.
to.
We were not going to talk about the 34 counts and the judgment and jail and cuffs in the orange jumpsuit, but I just wanted to, and I think for me, regardless of what, there's a lot of foolishness out there, but I hope everyone is thinking about how important it is to vote because something that happened this week really hit home when you're thinking the Fearless Fund. Are you familiar with the Fearless Fund?
Yes, I am familiar with the Fearless Fun.
Yes, and the judgment that went out, the courts that for some reason decided that giving funds to black businesses is considered now unconstitutional. And I think that goes to a theme on one, attacking black women, and two, just attacking institutions of any kind, whether it's affirmative action. It's the same organization that that sued and won their case about affirmative action. So you have $280 billion that are invested for venture capitalists for particularly white businesses. And here is a 25 million for black businesses, and it's no longer they're no longer allowed to give funds.
They're
So
no longer allowed to give
I
funds
want
solely based on
to
them being black businesses.
right. There's a pause now for them to give about. So I just think that it's important for us to one be aware, one to support however you can support fearless funds, and however there's a limit. I saw someone on social media talking about we all need to be given black organizations and black businesses, particularly black women businesses grants because at some point are they going to all come after us. So I just wanted to say that and just bring attention to that.
Ugh. Yeah. I know we're not going to talk about anything political, but I will
As we talk about everything political.
well, I mean, I'm planning my own self-care for November, and I encourage you all to be planning your own self-care in advance for November. Well, actually July too, right? When they're sentencing him.
Yeah. You know, Thailand and Panama really they love to take accept Americans, so make your plans.
Make
Make your
plans.
plans. But all of that, everyone should be celebrating Pride as as a woman who is, in a loving, happy marriage with Jennifer, and I talk about her often on this
Probably too
podcast,
often.
and I go back.
She's probably sitting
Really?
here going, "A little
She
too
loves
many
it.
details, Tanya, dear."
I don't share details except the fact that my garden is fantastic, by the way. I have lettuce in my sink right now that we grew. Anyway, but going back to, and not to touch back on politics, but we have to celebrate Pride and acknowledge the LGBTQIA and
Plus.
community, my community, and plus, and know that it's under attack as
Yes.
well.
Yes, and celebrating does not mean buying a shirt at Target
Please,
at
and
Target.
Target,
Yeah.
do better. Target, I'm gonna need you
Target's
to
like,
do
"Look,
better
we
than
got
you
some
had
paper
last
plates
year.
for you." You know who actually does the worst? I feel bad even saying this because, look, you're trying, but have you been in the airport and walked by a Southwest terminal and seen the month
No, I
I
don't do
girl, you heard me
Southwest.
say walk by a terminal. They put
Right.
they put these
Frontier.
little like, for each month, they put a table out. Girl, when I tell you it looks like a
They do?
grammar school, like, book fair. They throw all the artifacts they can about whatever month it is on this table, and they say, like, Southwest celebrates Pride, Southwest celebrates Asian Pacific, heritage. Southwest it is the like, I'm gonna give give them 2 points out of 100 for trying, but it is so pathetic. And you know how Southwest lines get, so you know that table's getting pushed, people throwing stuff on top of it. Nobody cares.
Girl, I have never seen
We're gonna
that line,
we're
and
gonna
I'm glad
post
I don't walk by. Delta is not
Girl, you know
anywhere
Delta's not
close
doing that.
to the
Delta's not
Southwest.
doing any of that.
Right, no. But it's
By
a
the
great
way,
month, the
if you're
month
a
of June.
follower of
So
ours and you fly or walk by Southwest, I need you to take a picture of one of these trash tables they put up and share it on social media and tag us because I need the people to see this.
she needs the proof.
Girl,
She
I'll
needs the
tell you.
proof. So, vulnerability. I've seen a lot of posts, articles, seminars, conversations about being vulnerable and how hard it is. For me personally, I don't sit in a space of vulnerability. And I think sometimes people assume that I am because I'm so connected and I share things, but it's hard to get deep with me. But let's talk about it.
Yeah, I think I definitely think it's a trigger. I think it's a trigger for us. That's why certainly why it came up for me. I mean, I was sharing that what was it 10 years ago was that when Brene Brown's big first like TED Talk came out. I think it had to have been like 10, 12 years ago, and vulnerability was all the rage and everyone was talking about how are you being vulnerable and what are you doing. And I it took a while as I just like kind of unpacked it, but what I have found actually most helpful is a lot of these conversations lately talking about the barriers to vulnerability for Black women. And I really felt seen in a lot of the articles that I've read around not an argument on the importance of vulnerability, but a conversation around the challenges with getting vulnerable and the barriers to vulnerability for women of color and particularly individuals who don't feel safe in their environment and don't trust their environment and how you can't really have
Right.
vulnerability without trust. And those have really resonated with me. So it's certainly part of the conversation I wanted to have because you're right, vulnerability isn't just telling people your business.
Right. Right. There's so many, I would say that there's so many layers to thinking about vulnerability. And it also, it's basically space and place, right? So how we define vulnerability in our workplace is definitely not the same way we would define vulnerability in relationships, friendships, family, how we come into the world. So it is, why we need another part 2. It's because it's actually so complex, particularly for Black women. But what drives our fear of being vulnerable? Let's talk about
Or
that a little bit.
actually, do you mind if we start by just giving people kind of what this is the kind of what vulnerability is and what people say it is? I mean, I talked about Brene Brown, so I'll just bring up how she describes it. Is
Okay.
she describes it as uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. And so it's that unstable feeling we get when we step out of our comfort zone or do something that forces us to lose control. And she
Mm, ain't happening, none of that.
Uh,
Not in my life.
yeah, I think that that's the big pushback, right? Is the first in order to do any of that, you have to feel safe, or else you just won't do it, right? You'll clinch up and you're not gonna do anything, and I think for a lot of us in some of those environments you talked about, work, family, healthcare, there's a lot of barriers to us feeling like we can expose ourselves. We can say we don't know something or we can take a risk, right? You're already not feeling seen and heard because there's a lack of representation. So either you don't in most
Right.
spaces that you're in. So either you don't feel seen or heard, or you feel like as soon as you are seen and heard, you are representing all people who look like you. And then
Everybody.
I think there's also this place that we're used to, this kind of misinterpretation of our emotions. When we do say, "Okay, let me feel vulnerable. Let me maybe say something, say how I'm really feeling." Maybe it's tone, maybe it's, approach.
Mm,
Suddenly you're worried about how am I gonna be perceived, right? And then,
right.
girl, you have
And the
right.
anxiety, let's go back, and that's just causes so
Right,
much stress.
right. And then you just have the piece of, like, we already are people who are hyper aware of what's going on around us. What are people thinking about us? What are the things we need to keep an eye out for, right? So, again, really hard to feel like you can be vulnerable when you feel like as soon as I walk out of this room, someone's gonna say X. Why do I know that? Because it's happened before. Why do I know that? Because I've watched people do it to
Right,
someone else, right? So there's all those
right.
are all things that are, as a woman of color, things that come into play when we think about vulnerability. It's like, so I'm just supposed to walk in a room and feel
Yeah.
free and open and tell you how I'm feeling. It's like, that's a no. That's a no for me.
Or share, or share all of the things that happen with you on
Right,
the weekend, or share, I think the need and the desire, I was reading recently, according to the Harvard Business Review, vulnerability is an essential part of
right,
leadership, right? So if you're going to be a good leader, and it goes back to Brene Brown, which I'm not sure is for
right,
everyone, you have to be able to be vulnerable with
right,
your team, to let down
right,
those guards. But then if you're vulnerable with your team, particularly if you look like us, then there's some other things that they're
right.
thinking of. Well, maybe she's not strong enough. Maybe she's too intense. She's a bit more aggressive. Oh, is she
Mhm.
okay? There's I can't tell you how many times if I just have my face that's fixed a
Right,
certain way, how many are you
right.
okays? So we also have to come and in some ways be
Performative, yeah.
and we have to be right. We have to perform performative and also come, whether it's in a happy, joyful place or in a space in which we'll kind of keep other people's guard down. So there's so much
Mhm.
work that's going on in my head when I'm in a
Right.
room that it's almost impossible to really be
Yeah.
vulnerable.
Well, I think that, part of the challenge with this kind of pop science look at vulnerability is, it's often you're often asked like, okay, well, what's the price you're paying for not opening up? What's the price you're paying for holding it all in? It's like we
Right.
know what the price is. And by the way, it's not like it it doesn't change a whole lot for us, right? So I think it's like the price is you don't get selected for certain roles because people don't feel like you're approachable enough. It's you're not, whatever. People use don't use words like adjectives like sweet and open and to describe you, they use other types of words that maybe they've placed negative connotations to or so I or on. I think it's yeah, there is definitely I told a friend of mine of ours that I would bring this situation up on our podcast. But it's so funny because as I was thinking about how I was gonna bring this situation up without using any identifiers, I realized that, like, I'm probably gonna get calls from, like, 10 people in my life
Who think
who
you're
think they're
talking about
talking
them.
about us. But I was talking about, you know, I don't know the stat. We should post it somewhere when we post this episode, but Black women are the some of the
Right.
highest educated groups of people there are. And I was talking to someone and she was explaining to me this idea that, like, when she doesn't know something, she's going to go search and then find a way to learn it so that she can then become an expert. And I said to her, "You realize that that's not what everyone does, right?" I said, "You realize that there are lots of people who, if they don't know the answer, they feel comfortable in a room just saying like, 'Oh, that's an interesting point. What do you what do
Lots of
what do
them.
you
We
mean
see
by
them.
that?' Or saying like, 'I don't understand that word you just used. Will you tell me what that means?' Or like, it and I think that even when we talk about vulnerability for Black women, even that conversation, I have a lot of people in my life who that feels uncomfortable. I should know this. Even if it's something like completely out of their field, I should know this. Now,
Right,
not
right,
only let me go
right,
learn it, but let me get a master's in it. Let me master it.
right.
And
Right. Meanwhile, there are a lot of people, as you pointed out, there's a lot of people that don't feel as though one, they have to
right.
know it, or two, they need to go through all of that Sturm und Drang instead of just saying, "Hey, I don't know." And that goes back to the being vulnerable. We willing and can we? Do we have the luxury of just saying, you know what, I don't know that. Could you share that? And if we do, I think we'll probably, I don't know if I would sleep. I would probably be up all night going, I wonder what they
Yep.
thought. I would probably don't like me. Da 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 da. Oh my God, I'm not gonna get that promote. Like we start
Yeah,
obsessing
or
about it.
even if I say I know it, will they believe that I know it without the 2 or 3 letters after my name that show that I've mastered it, right? Like,
Right. Trust
I
and
need to go
believe.
seek that external, like, not only validation, but, like, authentication. Like, this person knows this information, you cannot take this away from them, right? I think that there is a whole lot of don't get me wrong, I'm not saying if you're Black and you're a woman, you got a degree for that reason, that's not what I'm saying, but I do think there's a lot of us who feel like, I won't have to try to prove to someone that I know something if I can just say that I have my MBA. Then they're not gonna question me on if I know what I'm talking about when it comes to XYZ, or
Well, the scary thing is it
it
doesn't
doesn't.
matter though.
No, we're
They're
full
still gonna look. They still look at. They still. They know. They still look at you, and they're still gonna make an assumption. I was listening to a great podcast that you suggested to me, and it was Ask a Therapist at Black Female Therapists and at Counseling in Color. She was in her office with a picture of her son, and someone came in and basically said something like, "Oh, you're a single mom." What? Like the fact that someone would come into your office and just because you have pictures of children and maybe not your husband, that they would make an assumption. And I say that only because nobody may have looked up and saw the degree, because she's a therapist. No one thought anything else. It was just the assumption. And
well,
that's
and
what
then
people do.
that's those experiences, when we talk about misrepresentation, those experiences built up over time like a callus are why we have a hard time being vulnerable next time. So next time when someone's like, "Oh, hey, tell me about, my kid is going through this challenge in their life. Like, tell me about your family." That's why people sometimes are like, "No."
I don't wanna
Yeah,
talk about my
right.
own.
Because
Right.
all of
No,
these
right.
situations happen, and it can be something as like a microaggression that, like, built up over time, which we've all experienced. It's why communities of like-minded people, communities of women of color are so important, because all of us understand intellectually the harm of holding in so much, right? Not being able to talk about where you're struggling, not being able to talk about where you need help, not asking someone to help. All of us know that that's not good for us. That's not good for our health. That's not good for our heads. But that doesn't matter. Like, we if we don't have the resources, you're holding it in going, "I know I shouldn't be doing this, but I don't have another option." Right?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, that's why podcasts like this are so important, is because it's the role of community that supports us. The role of community that we have. I mean, I think about the people that I feel like I can call when I'm feeling like, did I say that the way? Or did this person? I mean, we all have to have those people that we can sort of connect with and talk to, the people that we trust. I mean, we can't walk in a world that we are not being vulnerable, but we have
You have
to,
to. Yeah,
and we do all find those
yeah,
people that we can trust and we can talk with and we can, and it's a
yeah,
sounding board. We all need those sounding boards to help us as we
yeah.
navigate.
That's why a girl call me circle is so important, because you need to have the people that you can pick up
Yes.
and be like, "Girl, call me." Because you're right, we all know the dangers. Particularly last season, we learned of the dangers: autoimmunity, cardiovascular. I mean, there's a lot.
Okay. Me too.
There's a
There
lot
is
of
a
holding on,
lot.
right? So
There's a
now it's like, okay,
lot.
we know that we can't
Listen,
hold on to it. We also know
y'all got that calcium score yet? No calcium score? How's that calcium
we
score
all
going?
know that we're not going to be able to change other people. And so if we can't
No.
carry it and we can't change it, the only thing we can do is kind of create our own outlets and circles of strength, if you will, of people who you can have these conversations with. But I also even think acknowledging it is helpful. I think that's why therapy has
Yes.
been really helpful for me. Even identifying the things, even if I hadn't worked through it yet, identifying the things and the places where I'm like, oh, I'm holding this in. I'm not being vulnerable here. I don't know why yet, but I just am acknowledging that that's what this is that's sitting here. I think that's even incredibly powerful. I think it's worth acknowledging too that we as black women for sure are storytellers, right?
Mhm.
So I think
Me too.
sometimes that
Yes.
we can mistake. I'm going to not talk about we. Let me talk about me. We can mistake
Okay.
telling a story with sharing and being vulnerable, right? And you talked about this a little bit in the beginning.
And
Yes.
that's me.
Because I could
Listen,
tell you
that's
the
me.
whole day. I could tell you what they were wearing. I could tell you how they talked. I could tell you, but how it made me feel is very
Oh
hard.
God,
See,
no.
so that's the allergy for us, because we'll tell you it all, but how
Did you say allergy? That's how
that's
we
how we're
start sneezing?
allergic is someone's like, "Oh my gosh, that's an interesting story. How'd that make you feel?" "Girl, I gotta go."
I just look, and I usually will look at them like, "Why are you asking my business?" But, like, mind
But
you,
mind
I've
you,
been
I told
telling
you
you,
the whole
and yes,
thing.
I mean yes, yes, but and yes, and I will say that you're talking about me right there. I will tell a full story, and even it will almost feel, and I think that's how people get confused, will almost feel like, "Wow, she's so
Right,
open." But don't ask that
right.
follow-up question. Don't ask how you felt. Oh my God, are you
Mhm.
okay?
No,
Don't go there, because then you might get a
right.
look, and and you might be, and I'll just be
Yeah.
changing. I'll butterfly my way. I call it butterflying. I'll butterfly
I'm
to the
glad.
the
So
next
by the way, listener,
conversation.
if you have a term for when you're shirking vulnerability, you know you got a problem.
Right.
Butterfly
Butterfly.
in the
That's me.
sky.
Right,
I
right.
think that I'm so yeah, the story piece is such an important one, and I think as we think about practical things you can walk away with, besides just listening to our show, another practical thing you can do
Right.
is after you tell a story, like, after you feel like, "Ugh, I got it all out." Don't try to do it all in one night, but just be honest with yourself about,
Right.
like, "Did that accomplish what I needed? Or was that just the gossip I needed to get out, but is there a feeling that's still lingering that's gonna catch up with me later?" Or
Yeah.
it may already be catching up with me physically.
And maybe that's where the journaling comes in. Maybe you're taking a moment to, as Marcel Haddix reminded us, to just write in your book and say, "I told this story, but this is how I really
Mhm.
felt."
Yeah.
And or taking that moment, going back to calling someone who you actually can actually be
Mhm.
vulnerable with. Because, I will talk about my best friend occasionally, I often have things and she'll always be like, "That was just in your head." Outside, once you say it
Yeah.
out loud, and I think for all of us, once we say the feeling, the the fear, whatever it is, once we say it, sometimes we feel really different about it. And other people who have a different perspective will go, "You know what?
Right.
That's not really that was not
Right.
what
And you
that
gotta go
was."
deeper than, "I'm pissed. This pissed me off," or that
Right.
because there's more there. Are you feeling shame? Are you feeling, like, are you feeling shame? Are
Mm,
you feeling insignificant? Are you feeling unheard? You know, because it's easy for us to just be like, I'm pissed, I'm hot, I'm this, but like,
I'm done.
right,
I'm done. That's usually where I sit.
right.
I'm done with you.
But what is it really? Yeah, spend the time.
And yeah. That's a good tip, and you know what? I will say that I'm not a big journaler, but I like a phone
Mm,
note. Sometimes I will just do a
mhm.
phone note, and that
Yep,
lets it out
yep.
for me, because, I don't know, maybe it's too vulnerable to
Because
write
someone may
it down
find it
because who's
when
gonna
you
look at it?
die, and they're gonna
Somebody's gonna
read that at
find
your
that.
funeral, and everyone's gonna know you're
To be
vulnerable,
like,
even though
"Ooh."
even though you're laying there
Right.
dead, they're gonna it's too vulnerable.
Somebody's gonna know. So, no, that phone note can go away. That phone note
Oh,
goes away in
right up
three,
to the
two,
cloud.
one.
Yeah, yeah,
Really? Thank you for reminding me that it does sit somewhere.
yeah, I actually had to pull back on journaling for a while. I used to be a huge journaler. I mean, my whole life. I probably shared that on this call. I got journals going back to 4th grade, but I did find myself feeling like, "Ooh, I got it all out." I think it was my therapist who was like, "I think you're telling yourself that you're, like, getting it all out, but, like, it you're just kinda spinning yourself up and intellectualizing it." And it's
Mm.
like, once you start intellectualizing it, then it's
Mm.
like, "Okay, now I'm really far from feelings because now I'm" so
All
girl,
in my head.
too much.
Oh, no feelings.
No
No
feelings.
feelings. No
No.
feelings. Right.
Oh,
No, this is a good conversation, and I think that as we this is such a big a parter, like, we have, like, probably 3 parts that can talk about because, we really just scratched the
right.
surface. I mean, we talk about relationships being vulnerable, when we talk about friendships. There are even those that you are closest to, sometimes it's hard to say, "You
Mhm.
hurt me." And so, there are so many ways that we can have this conversation, and I think we'll be continuing this. Thank you all for listening. Please like and share podcast.girlcallme on Instagram. And please subscribe, rate, review, follow us on social,
And
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 we will see
tag
you
us in
next
any of
time.
those janky airport, displays.
Yes. And
I
Southwest.
don't even want just be on top.
Southwest is
Hey,
about to
look,
hate us.
whatever.
Cease and desist. Southwest will be mad at us. No sponsor
Talk
there.
to you next week, everybody. Bye. Hey, it's Jessica. Thanks for listening to Girl Call Me. If you have something to add or a story to share, come on over to Instagram or Facebook and join the conversation. Also, make sure you follow and subscribe Girl Call Me you don't want to miss when we release new episodes. Thanks for listening.